Okie dokie. Connect streaming software. Well, here we go. And we are live.
Here we go. Hello, friends. Hope your 2023 has started off swimmingly.
Yes. Hello, everybody. We're back. We're going to do a review of Glass Onion today. I'm excited for this one. There's a lot to talk about. I think the way to go at this is to discuss, we'll do like a little plot summary, and then we'll say, we'll give our experience watching the movie, and then we'll do a more theoretical breakdown of what occurred.
I think that makes sense. It's kind of how it was for me experiencing it.
Right. Same. So here we got Rian Johnson's second whodunit, following up the hit Knives Out, which was in theaters for, I think, like 5 months. It was in theaters for a long time. It wasn't going to streaming service immediately after, as this one was. The first one was $40 million. This one also cost $40 million, which we can get to. I find that impressive. It's more like 80 after everything is said and done. But so we got Miles. We got Miles here. He's got an island in Greece where he is hosting a whodunit party, a murder mystery party. He invites some friends to investigate and solve his own murder as a game. He's setting up a game. So he invites his friends, and the world famous detective Benoit Blanc shows up unannounced, and we go from there. Some things happen. There's a real murder that takes place, and so an actual murder mystery unfolds. And then you find out there's actually another murder mystery that was unfolding that we weren't even aware about for half the movie. So it's very different from the first one, Knives Out. It's the everything from the color palette to the cast is very different. The dialogue's pretty different. So it shows some variety in that way. It's not, but I had fun watching it. We'll get into spoilers in a minute. I'm trying not to say anything spoilers. That's why I'm going a little bit slow here. But I did want to say that, like Knives Out, I enjoyed watching it. I really did. It was just kind of fun, and it wasn't too taxing. There's nothing heavy going on. It was just happening, and a lot of style stuff. There's some good music in it. I think the cast is great. I think they all do a fine job. And so I was just along for the ride. It was, it's Christmas Eve, so that's part of it too. It's Christmas Eve. You're watching a movie. I was just enjoying myself.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I watched this with my wife, and we enjoyed it. The first time we watched it, it kind of was hitting those marks for having characters that we both could enjoy, and trying to figure out and make our guesses as we were watching it of what was really going on. We'll get more into all that, but I think the characters were a big part of why I liked this. They had some really fun, different personalities. It was kind of like, what would I compare it to? I feel like it, in a weird way, reminds me almost of like Reservoir Dogs, where it's this like group of people together who are, each kind of unique and interesting. And they're kind of what pulls you into the story, I think.
For sure. And it's going quick. So, at least it feels that way. It's just kind of like minute to minute, there's something else going on. So what I thought would be interesting, we both wanted to talk about it, actually. We both had similar experiences with it. But the reason I thought it would be really interesting to talk about was because the second viewing, so the following morning, I started thinking about the movie more and was like, all right, I enjoyed it. It was fun. So how well does it hold up? And just thinking it over, I came up with 6 very significant, they're not exactly plot holes. So there's plot holes and there's contrivances, and those are different. The plot holes are something that doesn't make sense logically. So like, you know, a contrivance is something that's extremely convenient. So a classic contrivance that I love is actually the Millennium Falcon just bumping into the Death Star in the middle of space. That's a contrivance. You know, there's no event that connects the 2 points. You know, the Death Star is just out there, and Han just happens upon it, and they all happen to, like, you know, that all, there's so many contrivances in the Star Wars trilogy, the original especially, that it's never said explicitly, but I think it's a Force thing. You could defend it as like, well, it's the Force kind of drew them there. But that's an example of a contrivance. It's just something that's extremely convenient that happens in the plot that allows the plot to continue. But then there's plot holes, which are just like something illogical that happened or something inconsistent that happened. So 2 different things going on there. And this movie is just like an extremely contrived story where things are just happening in a certain way because it was supposed to, because it's written by a person. It's not supposed to feel that way. You know, it's supposed to feel like you're watching real people living out an experience. But the first one I'll go to for a contrivance, the first one that comes to mind is that so Edward Norton's character, Miles, he has hot sauce, Jeremy Renner's hot sauce on a table that Blanc, the detective, happens upon, and he's trying it on something, clearly doesn't like the hot sauce. And then Miles is like, oh, take some. He's like, oh, okay. And then skip forward 45 minutes later, you have a woman who's shot in the chest, and the bullet hits her sister's diary, and Blanc thinks, well, we're going to fake your death right now so that you can go off and do your mystery solving while I distract them. So he takes the hot sauce that was given to him earlier that night that he put in his suit pocket, and he takes the hot sauce out and pours it over her to make it look like she's bleeding. And that's how she looks like she got shot. And they all see the hot sauce on her shirt, and basically from 30 yards away, maybe, they see her laying there and scream and go back inside. So that's a contrivance I will never forget. It's like, oh, he's carrying that hot sauce. So getting into all this stuff like that, I'll just say it. Like, again, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed watching it.
It's also the same scene. None of those characters, like you said, they stay like 30 feet away from the body. No one checks if she's alive,
including the person who just shot her.
Right.
The person who just shot her. He's like, oh, looks like this is all taken care of, and goes back inside.
But you think you're right. I mean, that maybe he didn't want his identity to be revealed, but for the other ones, it's like, why you think this innocent person just got shot? Why wouldn't you check if she's okay?
Of course,
not everyone who's shot is dead right away.
Right.
Like,
yeah, of course.
It's a very weird aspect to that scene.
Right. They're not acting like real people for sure. And so Miles, it was Miles who shot her. He shoots her through the window. It's quite a shot because the bullet went through a window and still went to what we would think is exactly where he was aiming, which was her heart. But she happened to be carrying her sister's diary inside of her suit jacket, as one does, and the bullet hit her in the diary, and which in the diary stopped the bullet, and so she's fine. But after Miles shoots the one bullet, also he only shoots one time, he drops the gun and goes around. So he goes back into the house and comes out with the other guests. So it doesn't. So his cover was already there. Like he already made it look like he was coming from a different direction. So if he was a naturally acting person, he would have gone up to her and at least inspected it to some degree. But no, he's far away. He's pretty far away. Never sees her. So I think Rian Johnson, the writer director of The Last Jedi, which is I think it's one of the most divisive movies that I know of. It split up one of the largest fan bases on Earth, one of the largest fan bases that's ever been, the Star Wars fan base. It split them permanently, and it started the fandom menace, it's called. And he did things in that movie, which he makes comments on in this movie, Glass Onion, but he did things in The Last Jedi that were juvenile and resentful towards Star Wars, and I just think that's how he thinks about things. And he then defended himself on social media afterwards, mocking fans and mocking how much they care about Star Wars. And I think he's just a snotty little brat, and I think he's a terrible, awful writer. And I think this movie is ironically The Glass Onion. So, okay, I am going to give my list. I have a list of inconsistencies and contrivances. I'll go through it quick. We don't have to get into all of them, but I am going to read off the list. But first, I think the thing that turns Blanc onto Miles is that Miles is actually very stupid and he's not a genius that started multi-billion-dollar companies. That it's because he used the wrong words for things. Remember that? Mm-hmm. When Blanc begins his very lawyer-esque breakdown of the situation and starts to pin it on Miles in front of everybody, he opens first with a couple of words that Miles had said wrong. Either they were literally made up words, or they were words that weren't used correctly. And it's so ironic because Glass Onion is not about something being stupid. Because the defense of this movie is that, you don't understand. Miles is actually stupid. And that's the point of the movie. It's called Glass Onion. And it's actually you're not supposed to look into it very deeply. And it's so you just, in the defense, I've seen this a couple times for the movie, there's two kind of understandings of what Glass Onion means. And so even that is inconsistent, because in one understanding, Glass Onion means something you thought was intelligent but is actually dumb. But that's not what Glass Onion means. Glass Onion is something that looks complicated but is actually very simple. And I love stories like that. We just watched Jumanji the other night with some kids. Mm-hmm. It was super fun. It seems like a complicated movie with a complicated plot, but it's not at all. It's very, very simple. They give you a couple of rules in the opening couple scenes, and they stick with it. And it's a very simple movie. So there's nothing about a plot looking complicated or seeming that way that actually ends up being very simple. That I like that. It's clever to do things like that. That's not what this movie is. And that's not what... So, you know what I mean with that? Mm-hmm. He ironically called his movie Glass Onion because he's thinking jokes on the people who look into this and who pick apart this movie. It's actually like a glass onion. It's very simple, and it's not meant to be picked apart. And it's no, you made a 2-hour whodunit. You made a whodunit movie, and people are going to pick it apart. And it's just, he does in his own product what he's making fun of Miles for doing in the movie. I just find that very ironic. But so this list of contrivances, we got Helen is shot right where her sister's diary is held inside of her suit jacket. That's contrived. Blanc carries the hot sauce. So we mentioned these two. Andy's death not being disclosed. I think we'll come back to that because I think you have some thoughts on that too. Andy is a world famous, inventor, I guess.
Entrepreneur, kind of.
Entrepreneur. Yeah, for sure. And she supposedly commits suicide, and nobody finds out for at least a week. I think it's 1 to 2 weeks that this story is taking place after the death. Andy's death not being disclosed. That is contrived. Andy and Blanc are even led on the island. They never should have been led on the island to begin with. No invitations are ever checked. Blanc can't detect stupid, which they make a point of several times in the movie. Blanc is such a good detective, even though this movie and Knives Out don't show him being a good detective at all. They show him being extremely incompetent. We're told everyone at this party knows who he is. He's such a good detective. I don't know any real world murder detectives by name. I don't think. Me neither. I think that's a whodunit trope, It's just kind of cute. Like if the person was written intelligently, I could see them playing that off because I think that is common for whodunits. Is the detective is well known. Sherlock Holmes, obviously, he's an exceptional, case of that. But in Sherlock Holmes stories, Sherlock Holmes is shown to be very intelligent, unlike Blanc. So Blanc is, again, the movie is saying, so intelligent, he can't detect stupid, which is how Miles gets away with what he gets away with for as long as he does. Next one is Andy can't find the napkin that she wrote on, she had written in the Glass Onion bar, the business model. It was just a business model of how they were going to, the ways they were going to spend money, where they were going to spend money, and where they were going to get money, and their revenue stream and all that. She can't find it until the day after the trial, and she goes home and in a angry fit after losing the trial, she throws a bookcase over and it falls onto the floor. That's how she finds it. That's contrived. There's no security whatsoever. There's not one security camera on the island. There are no employees on the island. Miles says that they usually have 50 people working on the island, but for some reason, while he's having his dinner party with all these rich, famous people, he doesn't need any employees at all. That's contrived. And the last one here is that Andy kept a bulletproof journal of everything in the first place. So Andy, the lady who was murdered by Miles, she keeps journals of all the information that her sister could possibly need to solve her murder for some reason. So, so those are the contrivances. That's not including any plot holes. So, I think you had mentioned when we were chatting about this the other day, it came up about, which one was it? Andy's death not being disclosed. What did you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, that was just nonsensical, really. Like, no one's death is ever not reported by the police unless no one tells the police that it happened or the authorities. But the sister clearly knows right away that her sister dies, and she is seeking out a detective. So you would think that she did tell the police before she went to a private detective that her sister was dead. Also, if she didn't tell anyone that her sister is dead, then her body is presumably still in the house, just rotting where it died. There's just a lot of holes with that. A death requires some work. There's a morgue. There's everyone involved with removing the body and cleaning up after the body.
Yeah, for sure. Especially a suicide, you would think there would be more hubbub around it. a suicide of a famous person.
Yeah, like you said, she's famous too, so even more so would that have gone out. The news of that would have gotten out. But even just anyone, like imagine just your neighbor dying and then you don't find out for 2 weeks. Like it's not in the obituaries. It's nothing. Like it just,
Right.
it's not, that doesn't happen.
No, no. I find it laughable. In the thing about a lot of these contrivances is, so there's probably others in there that are not included or that I just didn't think of yet, but these ones are all like the plot hinges on all of these. So they're not just little things you can throw out. This whole story hinges on the fact that Andy supposedly committed suicide in her car, and then her sister, you're right, her sister's notified of this immediately because it's 2 days after the death that she already is at Blanc's house. And so she finds out, but there's a throwaway line from Blanc that so there's nobody else in the family who knows. And so it's like, really? There's nobody else in the family? What about friends? So you found out, Helen, you find out that your twin sister, this happened, and then you don't tell anybody. And it's not for 2 days. It's not until you talk to Blanc that he comes up with the idea of not disclosing it to the press. And there's another throwaway line where he says, oh, maybe I could pull some strings and keep this from getting out. It's like, how do you do, like, who do you call to not, so, like all these industries where, TMZ, they have people who like keep an eye on these things. And a lot of it might be automated where they're in Hollywood Hills. So they're in an area where the police reports are being looked over all the time from people who will be paid from finding stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely.
It's like, it's so absurd. It's absurd. And, I'm sure I'm not the first to feel this way. Again, this context is with Rian Johnson in particular. If this were somebody who, made some movies I liked, or even this was the first film, I wouldn't be so hard on it. I would still point out stuff, but I would, I'd kind of try to be a little more even about it, because, I don't know. But I just don't like Rian Johnson to begin with. So I think that he thinks we're all stupid, to put it plainly. Like, I think a person who wrote this is lazy and he thinks you're stupid. Because there's so many things about this that are just so lazy. The hot sauce thing is an embarrassing, lazy thing to do. And I just can't imagine writing that. And just like, oh, but how are they going to... So she's not shot, but the people are going to see she's not shot, right? And then it's a post hoc thing. So I guarantee you that he didn't put the hot sauce in Blanc's pocket first and then be like, oh, he'll use it right now to cover, to make it look like she's bleeding. You know what I mean?
As well as to put in his eyes so it looks like he's crying.
Right, that too.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Reverse engineered, though.
Maybe this is a contrivance as well, but it's definitely my least favorite part of this entire movie was that in the conversation, for the first time, you're seeing Benoit Blanc talk to Helen, who's Andy's twin sister, and he straight up says, because she says Miles killed him or something like that. She alludes to that Miles is the killer, and Benoit's response is he would never do that because he just sent an email, or she just sent an email to him, which is a record that she has this piece of evidence in the red envelope against him. And so he wouldn't have committed the murder because that would be foolish. Everyone would know that that email was just sent to him. And that's, I'm not wording it exactly like how it happened.
No, that's pretty close.
But that feels very contrived. And as a viewer, it totally ruined my ability to solve this, because that seems like the most obvious. As you're watching in the beginning, you're like, oh, like Miles must have killed her, and what is the mystery? But then he says that, and you're like, oh, I guess that makes sense. Like, who else could have done it? And so you are thrown off very early in the story by his line telling you, like, it's not Miles, even though that would be the obvious answer. That's too obvious. Which again comes back to the glass onion concept, but it's just like
Blanc
you said,
is so smart, he doesn't detect this.
Yeah. Exactly. Like, why does he rule out the prime suspect because he thinks that would be too stupid? It just doesn't make sense.
Because he's that good of a detective. That's what the movie is saying. It says it multiple times.
Yeah,
he's that good of a director. I almost said.
I mean,
he's that good of a detective.
I do think that
he can.
Blanc does pull off, like, he acts like a very intelligent detective. You know, like the actor. You know, put aside the story writing, the actor himself, I think, sells the character much more than the actual dialogue.
Right.
So in that way, as you're watching it,
Legend.
you do think he is some kind of like super smart detective. And I am picturing, like, it's going to be someone I would never expect. It's going to be, you know, Peg the assistant, or like Birdie the dumb blonde, you know. It's gonna that's how I was looking at it, is like, it's gonna be something that isn't obvious to me watching it at the beginning,
right? Yeah, for sure.
And then they slowly give you motive for each of the characters, which they literally have a checklist going of like everyone's motive.
I know.
And you're like, okay, yeah, any one of these people would have wanted him, or wanted Miles to be dead.
I mean, figuratively, but literally, like, in to commit the murder, though, you know, it's like
there's a lot at stake for all of them.
I wasn't I don't know. I thought, you know, there's little quick things that he put in there, again, very lazily, but like, remember that the Birdie by the poolside, and she's watching Miles with whiskey, and Birdie's like, oh, like, I used to have him wrapped around my finger when he was a nobody. I liked it like that. And there's like some mischievous music playing, and you're just kind of thinking, like, is this supposed to be a motive for a murder? Like, I don't know.
Right.
It seems like that's what it's setting it up to be, but I don't know.
It's definitely, I mean, like you said, it was enjoyable watching it. I feel like all of those things are big issues with the actual plot, though.
Right, for sure.
Even as you're closing up the movie the first time you watch it, it's unsettling or unsatisfying that Miles is the killer.
I know.
You're just like, okay, like, this is so boring of an answer.
And the answer is that, Miles is the murderer, and he's really, really stupid. And that's why everything happens the way it does. And it's like, really, though? Like, I don't know. I do, you said a couple things, like Daniel Craig as Blanc is awesome. I do like it. I know it's hokey. It's supposed to be. I enjoy it. I really like Daniel Craig. I love Edward Norton. I always like him. He's a great Miles. He plays his role awesome. Kate Hudson plays her role great. I think the cast was awesome.
For sure.
The substance is just, it starts to fall apart, like when you start thinking about it. But so you did bring up an awesome point, though, which is the movie is lying to the viewer, and it does not give you the information you need. In fact, it points you away from the information. It gives you false information, and it redirects you away from it. I think of David Fincher as the ultimate, you know, it's not quite a whodunit necessarily. I think of whodunit as specifically with, you have an all-star cast, you have a bunch of people together. It's the Clue setup. You're all in a house, and you know, somebody murdered another one of you, and you've all got to figure it out now. And they're all kind of stuck there. So I do think of whodunits as a little more specific than the David Fincher films. But Seven, and he did another one, Zodiac. Oh my God, Zodiac is amazing. What an amazing movie. And what David Fincher does so well is that he lays out all of the information. Gone Girl is another great example of this. He gives you ample information. He gives you more information then you need to put it together, but you don't put it together until the moment he wants you to. And it's masterful. It's so exquisite the way he does it. And again, it's specifically that you, the viewer, have moments through the movie, you've noticed little things, but you didn't connect the dots yet. And then the writer, director, at the point he wants you, or she wants you to put it together, they give you the one last dot, and then it all connects. In that moment, and you can watch, David Fincher talks about this. He talks about that process and how hard it is to create that feeling of, oh, that's it. It's that guy. And it's supposed to be exciting. And it's, you know what you have to be to write a story like that? You have to be clever. You have to be like Rian Johnson is Miles. It's so ironic. It's just so ironic to me that it's such projection. And he, you know, again, he's got social media activity. So he doesn't like Elon Musk. He doesn't like Joe Rogan. So I'm watching this movie like, oh yeah, Miles is supposed to be Elon Musk. Okay. Oh, Duke, he's supposed to be Joe Rogan. Oh, yeah. And it's like, really? I mean, I've said it before on the show because I did write stuff with friends when I was a teenager. Like we had studio class at my high school, which was really rare. It was awesome. I loved it. We had so much fun. But we wrote stuff and we shot stuff. I'm telling you that high school studio students write better shit than this. And because the thing that, okay, he has really nice cameras and he's got a lot of people to call. And he's got some things that high school students don't have access to. But if you stripped all of that away and you just made a indie film, if this was his first film and he made it with 50 grand, nobody ever would have batted an eye at this. Ever. It's just because it's embarrassing and it all just falls apart. And he is Miles. But anyways, that's what bothers me. You know, besides all of the little things throughout it, but the general idea that he gives you false information. I don't know. It's strange to me. Yeah.
No, another piece of false information that bothered me when I was watching it was when Miles poisons Duke. The first time that they show the shot of him putting his drink down and Duke picking it up is lying to the viewer. And so they show him put it on the table and then they show Duke pick up the wrong glass.
Yeah.
But what they're saying later when they show you the truth of what happened was that what you saw was actually the other character's memory of what had happened, and that Miles had somehow tricked their memory because he actually hands his drink
to Duke, it to him,
which is very different than him picking up the wrong glass off the table.
Why? Okay.
So they lied to the viewer there big time.
Yeah. Why in the world have you ever in your life gone to pick up a glass from a table but accidentally taken a glass out of somebody else's hand? Right. It's a strange thing that happens. Yeah. And it's so big to the plot. Again, this isn't picking on it. This isn't like looking a little too deep. This is like essential to the development of the story.
Mm-hmm. And something you pointed out that makes a lot of sense too is that why does Duke not taste pineapple?
Dude, yes.
He's deathly allergic to pineapple, but he doesn't know what's happening. He just starts choking and he doesn't know why. And it's not even immediate. It takes like maybe a minute or two after he starts drinking it, but he doesn't tell anyone like, oh, this tastes like pineapple, I'm in trouble. Which makes no sense. Pineapple is a very distinct taste. I challenge you to have any drink with pineapple in it and not
enough that
notice.
It would kill somebody who's allergic to it.
Right.
And like, no, he doesn't. There's no noise. There's no like, oh no, this has pineapple in it. Like, and then a little freak out, and then he starts choking. Nothing. He's totally fine.
Yeah, which is very contrived.
Look how dark this hot sauce is.
Yeah, that was another thing. Is the hot sauce. I missed the first time I watched it that Miles told him to pocket that, and
Yep, it was Miles' idea.
I thought the detective just carried this hot sauce for the dual purpose of looking like fake blood as well as making himself cry. I thought that was like part of his utility belt of detective tools.
If he was a really good detective, see, that would be the kind of a cool thing to do,
right? Exactly, and like you said,
Especially
it looks so much like blood.
Yeah,
like, what kind of hot sauce could you ever spill on yourself where it would be that dark and look like blood?
It's ridiculous.
It's just not normal.
What it looks like is the kind of fake blood that a movie studio has in the closet.
It's like a horror movie prop.
It looks like fake blood, not like hot sauce.
Yeah, big time.
It's so silly, and it's like he doesn't even like the hot sauce too. Like, again, a clever person would have been writing this, or even when you go to direct it, you catch things when you go to direct stuff too. I hear that from I listen to directors talk about stuff, and they're like, oh yeah, it's a scary thing when one of your cast members comes up to you. It's like, hey, I noticed something in the script last night, because you don't know where they're going. And sometimes it's, I think this would be an interesting thing about my character to like really hone in on, and let's do that. But sometimes it's like, hey, I noticed, like, so Miles gave him hot sauce and then he puts it in his jacket pocket. Why don't you have him like the hot sauce? Yeah. Like, nobody said it would be more believable if he was like, oh my God, like, he's a Southern guy. And you could have had him love the hot sauce and like, oh, I want 3 bottles. I'm going to take this home and blah, blah, blah. But no, he's like making this face like, oh, wow, that's way too much. I don't even like this. And Miles is just like, oh, take some home. And that's it.
Yeah.
And it's just, I don't know. It's strange.
I feel like
it's strange.
I starting at the beginning for me, when I think about it, there's several of my things that are my favorite things about when I watched it. Even when I was watching it, there was immediate things that kind of bothered me about those things. One of the things is the box that they all receive at the beginning.
Yes,
I loved that. Like,
I was excited.
It was really cool visually. The way that the box looked solid, but then opened up. It was
Editing
beautiful.
was cool. The way it was all cut
those
together.
Puzzles, the way it was put together. The pace of solving it, and how, like, it feels like, it's going to happen, and you just are waiting for it, and they're all working together on it. It's cool puzzles. It's very interesting how they're solving it. But the center of it was underwhelming. And what I felt when I watched it was that it was going to have some kind of reason, or not reason, but reward for the people who solved it first compared to the people who solved it last. But that wasn't at all how it went. They all just got the same invitation. But I thought it was a missed opportunity where whoever solved it first would maybe get some kind of advantage in the upcoming mystery, or something like that. It just seemed like it was such a cool box that at the end of the day didn't really mean anything. They could have just gotten the invitation. So that was kind of a letdown for me. And there was several things, like also the twist with Duke and his girlfriend Whiskey. So the first time that you see Miles in bed with Whiskey, you're lied to, and you think that he's cheating on Duke because you just don't have enough information. And then later you're told Duke actually sent Whiskey in there to schmooze Miles into giving Duke some more views, or to putting him on the Alpha network or whatever. So when that twist comes out, it is a twist. You're like, oh, wow. Like, I thought he was pissed. I thought Duke was pissed because his girl is like in bed with Miles, but actually Duke sent the girl there to get more views, and it just makes you completely hate Duke now. You're like, okay, you're like a piece of shit that would have your girlfriend try to like bang this guy for your views on your channel. Like, it's shitty. And so even though it's a twist that you don't really see coming, it comes with a very bitter taste because it's just so not tasteful. And there's multiple things
And
like
why?
that in the story. I guess the last one that I would say was that through the story they mentioned 2 or 3 times that Miles is looking for the kind of fame where his name would be spoken in the same breath as the Mona Lisa, which is said a few times, and then you realize he owns the Mona Lisa somehow, and it's in his mansion in this case, and then he ends up burning it with the fuel that he was pushing that he shouldn't have been, etc. So, like, I kind of thought it was clever that they came back to, yeah, you're definitely going to be said in the same breath as the Mona Lisa, but it's because now you're going to be infamous and
Right.
hated,
It's supposed to be
not loved.
ironic.
I thought that was interesting.
Right,
But
right.
at the same time, that scene was so full of holes. Like, I don't feel like anyone watching that thought that that scene was realistic. Let me just say that if there's a hydrogen explosion in your house, you won't survive. Like, you're not going to come out of it looking like Wile E. Coyote with like some dark marks on you and your hair's messed up.
No.
Like, you likely won't have any hair, maybe not skin. You're going to be dead. It's going to fill the hydrogen that's in the air is going to fill your lungs and you will die. From one way or the other, the burning will kill you.
Mm-hmm.
All of the characters are protected by this plot armor in that scene that is just so unbelievably unrealistic. It ruins anything that you were feeling for that movie so far. And that was my least favorite scene by far. It just didn't make any sense. I liked things about it. I liked, like certain things had a lot of potential, like having the Mona Lisa, burning the Mona Lisa. There's a lot of potential in that.
Yeah.
Having the fancy one-of-a-kind sports car on the roof that falls into the building in the last scene, that had potential as well. And it even made me laugh while I'm watching it.
Maybe. But it definitely didn't. I mean, burning the Mona Lisa was just kind of like, I don't know, it didn't really mean anything.
But it's more because of the way it happened, I feel like.
Right.
Again, like certain things in the story had a lot of potential. It's like how I would describe this movie, and I think you're on a similar page, is like there were some really good ideas in essence, but they were put together really juvenilely.
Yeah.
It's just like some of these ideas were kind of cool. Like again, there were some things I thought had a lot of potential, but then they just were executed really poorly. The story didn't make things fit together well, and there was a lot of holes in how it all came together in a very unrealistic way. Like you said, this budget makes this movie in a lot of ways, and if someone with a $50,000 budget versus a $50 million budget, this movie wouldn't be meaningful. How could you have this cast and not make it somewhat enjoyable? These actors are excellent. The actresses as well. Like, they did a great job, but the actual dialogue that they're using and working with and the story that they're tied up in was just very mediocre, or even like juvenile is a good word.
Yeah, I mean, it just seems very like like throwing darts at the wall,
Yeah,
Just
it's like
kinda
I feel like someone wrote down in a notebook some cool ideas, like car on the roof.
Exactly,
At
right.
the end, the building blows up, it falls down. Kind of a cool idea. Could have been fit in very well. But then the way that they put all those ideas, like the box, again, it was a really cool idea. I really liked that, but they just didn't do anything with it.
Right.
It didn't mean anything in the story. It was just like kind of a cool like novelty.
Right.
And I just felt like there was a lot of that in this story.
For sure.
Just, missed opportunities, poorly written story.
I think I totally agree, and would only go just a step further and just say, the more I thought about it, it just felt very, it's not just juvenile, that is true, but it feels spiteful. Like it feels cynical and resentful and just petty. It's really petty to have a character that you successfully generated sympathy for with viewers, like when we saw Duke in the bushes with whiskey, and Whiskey's with Miles.
Exactly.
You have viewers who sympathize with Duke, who's the second murder victim, one of the two murder victims that we're going to be following. And like to take that and turn it into, oh, well, actually, he sent Whiskey there so that she would sleep with Miles, and then Miles is going to give him viewers on his network. Yeah. And it's like, it's really petty, and it's really cynical, and it's really like, you have it is when you have your head up your ass. It's what it is. It's like you can't get out of your own way, and you have your own emotions that are getting in the way very clearly of writing a good story. And there's nothing about Whiskey being with Miles as a means for Duke to get viewers that has anything important to do with the plot at all. You could totally remove that from the plot, and all we would get is more sympathy for Duke. But he can't have one character in this mix that you like. He just can't have it that way. Yeah. You're supposed to like Blanc and the
Andy or Helen.
Helen, yeah. That's it. You're supposed to like them too, and you can't like anybody else.
I think you just made me think of something else talking about the Duke story arc, is that you would have sympathized for him when he was murdered if Whiskey wasn't portrayed like that. I'm thinking back to the beginning of the story when you first meet Duke. He's streaming or whatever.
In his mom's house.
At his mom's house, exactly. And he says something to his mom, and she's just like, "You don't talk to me like that, or I will slap you up the face." And he shows in that moment that he respects his mother. Even though he's this giant jack dude, he looks sheepish, he looks guilty, and he looks like he feels bad that he talked to his mother like that.
Right.
And then, a half hour later, he's sending, in the story, he's sending his girl in to, like, bang this other guy, which shows a complete disrespect for women. And it's kind of a contradiction. You already built that we like this guy, and now you're tearing it all down.
You're not supposed to like that he is, like, subservient to his mother. I agree with you that a very slightly different angle on it could have been more endearing. Again, missed opportunities to like somebody that we should like more than the others. We should like Duke more than the others because he's one of the ones who gets killed, and it just seems obvious. But no, like, you have to, again, it's his emotional, like, oh, I'm ripping on Joe Rogan, and I'm gonna make him a mama's boy. Yeah, it's like, it's really petty and immature, and but the Whiskey Miles thing is one of the other times that the movie lies to you, because the first time we see it, you have a shot, you're looking at Duke, and behind him you see Blanc, and he peeks out from the bushes. And we see Blanc watching Duke. The second time we see that scene, we not only get more of the dialogue with Whiskey and Miles, but we see that Helen is with Blanc, and she's not there the first time. There's 3 that I've noticed, but there's probably more. If I watched it more, I'm sure I'd pick up on more. There's 3 times where the movie gives us one version of the scene, and then later on gives us an alternate version of the scene. And like, I've never seen that before. I've never seen anybody do it like that before.
Yeah. I mean, if I know movies,
it's not a Rashomon kind of thing.
Right. It's not in a good way. It's in a cheap way that is like lying to the viewer is a good expression. It's specifically meant to keep you from being able to figure everything out.
Yeah.
And it's distasteful. When you talk about how they're showing the scene differently, I think immediately of the Kung Fu movie Hero, which is excellent. Love that movie. But it is told, the same story or the same events is told several times, beautifully, by the way, different color schemes each time, different outfits, but it's the same events, it's the same characters, and you're seeing it basically through different people's perspectives, but it's very deliberate and it's very open. It's not like trying to cheat you out of information for now and then tell you later. I don't know. It's done beautifully. So I can picture that being done well, because again, Hero does it excellently.
Yeah, yeah.
But this is cheating the audience. It's not the same thing. It's not for artistic effect.
Yep. I know what you mean. Yeah. I also think of the Rashomon effect is a common thing, but the Rashomon is supposed to be when the Rashomon effect is, when you have multiple people telling their version of events. And it's from the Japanese movie Rashomon, where you have two men and a woman on trial for a man's murder, if I remember correctly, and they all give different versions of events. That's different. That movie is a philosophical adventure. It's really interesting to think about. Unfortunately, it's taken as it's used as a, kind of not evidence, but it's used to explain and argue just mass subjectivity, that there is no there's no objective experience. But like this movie is not doing that. It's not a philosophical journey. If anyone out there is taking this to heart, like you just watch Rashomon, please don't waste your time.
Yeah, I mean, I will definitely say that the first time I watched this, and without talking to you, I don't think I would pick up on some of the spiteful, like, against the characters aspects of it. I think that comes maybe with knowing more about the director, his view on some of these real life characters. I don't think I would have put together Joe Rogan or Elon Musk being related to these characters either. But I see that, and I see what you're saying. I definitely understand that, and
that like it's common. It's a common kind of thing about Elon Musk, that he's actually very stupid. I mean,
see. I don't hear that much. I guess most of
Yeah.
my YouTube views that I see are more glorifying him. I see him as like a super genius, so I don't.
I mean, he's clearly a super genius.
If anything, maybe will turn into a super villain someday.
I mean, yeah, right. So he would be he'd be a super genius villain. He wouldn't be stupid all of a sudden.
No.
I would even argue that Miles, I'm not even convinced Miles is that stupid. He does stupid things in the movie.
Right.
But like it also, so much of the movie is like, oh, well, Miles started that thing that made a ton of money, and then he did this other thing and that made $1 billion, and then he did this other thing that was really successful,
and he helped all these characters become successful,
Dude,
which stupid people can't do.
They literally list all of the things he did for all of the characters in this room, and from putting on, he helped a woman become governor. So it mentions that he bankrolled her campaign, but there's other comments about it too, and it like he had more involvement in that, and like it's just it is like Elon Musk, where it's like people say he is not a genius at all. He's actually quite stupid, in that he has gotten to where he is now off of the backs of other people, and that's what they're going with the Miles character.
I can see that. I see what you're saying more than anything, though, about Miles. His character's kind of it's nonsensical because he's such a contradiction.
Right.
He's doing some things that are very intelligent.
Yes.
And also some things that are too stupid for someone who's so intelligent.
Yes, exactly.
The biggest one, I don't even think we mentioned, I think it's the very stupidest thing that he does, is he lets this detective stay on this island. Like the very first time that he sees him getting on the boat or getting off the boat, he should have sent him packing.
So silly.
It just doesn't make any sense. He knows he murdered
or
tried to murder.
Oh my God.
The girl who shows up, even though it's his sister. He doesn't know it's the sister at that point. But
he's the thing is, though, he's so dumb. Yeah. He didn't even think to kick off Miles. He's that dumb.
I mean, it doesn't make any sense.
I know. I'm being facetious because
and he's not that stupid. Like someone who. Okay, another thing. Someone who manages to get the Mona Lisa in their private residence is not stupid.
Exactly.
Like, that took extreme work. He didn't just, like, flash money at people and they gave him the Mona Lisa. Like, I don't believe that for a second. Ever would that happen.
They're like 2 or 3 months into the pandemic when this movie's going
He
on.
convinced-
And France is so broke, they sold him the Mona Lisa.
Exactly. They would never, like, lots of people have money. They would never let the Mona Lisa go anywhere that they didn't believe was more safe than the Louvre.
It's so absurd.
There's no way. And so, that's a bad contradiction in itself.
I think there's certain strengths that Ryan Johnson has that we can mention in a moment, but I don't think being clever is one of them. I do think I'm more clever than him, literally. And I would say my climax with the Mona Lisa would be that it's fake. That's an obvious climax for that situation, not to burn it. Because am I not supposed to notice that the movie's climax is the empowered black woman breaking all the rich, stupid white guys' stuff, and that like empowers the rest of the cast to turn their backs on him? Oh man, we're peeling back the onion now, because let's say, so this cast, these characters, they're now all going to perjure themselves with Helen because they thought it was cool as she was breaking all of his glass stuff.
Right.
So they're gonna go back to court, or what are they gonna say about Miles? Because they went to be clear, they were in court 2 months ago, and on Miles' behalf against Andy, saying that it was Miles' idea. The revenue stream was Miles' idea.
Lying under oath.
And now they're gonna go back on that, or like, what's the deal?
Right. And that was the deal breaker, of course, like you said, when Andy is breaking all of his stuff. It wasn't the deal breaker when they realized moments before that he killed Duke and Andy.
That's not the deal breaker.
That's not the deal breaker. They already know this, and they already look away like, no, we're not going to help. No, we're still loyal to Miles. But then when she starts breaking the stuff, that's the deal breaker.
That's exactly what happens. Yeah. I think I should say it again, because there's one other thing too. The deal breaker isn't for the governor and scientist. For them, they know, they say it. I think there's 2 scenes, because another thing about the movie is they have to say everything 4 times.
Yeah. Oh,
so they have
say.
multiple things between the 2 of them saying, "Oh my God, he's doing it! It's not ready. It's like a hydrogen bomb." And they're gonna be silent, and they are silent, watching Miles roll out a technology that hasn't been sufficiently tested.
That they very well know is going to be in many residential homes before it starts to come out that it's a problem and will be a literal bomb in their house.
And it's not that it might be. The scientist says it is.
Right.
He says that some of the fumes leak because the atoms are too small and they get through the pipes, and then they will build up in the home and it's combustible. So he says explicitly it is a faulty technology.
Right.
And that's not where they turn back.
No.
And they don't, again, like you just said a moment ago, they don't turn against him when they find out he killed Duke. They don't turn against him when they find out he kills Andy.
I mean, that's the big one, though. You nailed it. Like, they literally know that thousands, millions, how many people are going to die
even
because
if
of
it's
this
a couple,
hydrogen
like
issue.
even if it just went into, because I'm sure there's other levels of testing. You know what I mean? It's not like they're going to just roll out an untested new source of energy. Like, there's going to be other forms of it, but like in their minds, it is going like directly to homes from this point. So it's like, it's really absurd. It's really absurd.
It absolutely
is. It's insulting. It is, because it, like, we're not that dumb, Ryan. We're just not that stupid. And and again, I think a lot of these decisions come from emotional. The decisions that these characters are making are born out of emotional decisions Ryan is making while making the movie, and it shows him to be a little just. He's just like a little brat. So I mentioned before what I think Ryan Johnson is good at, and I think the reason he's getting. He's getting a Star Wars trilogy that's still going. Like, there's no signs to show. He mentioned pretty recently that it's moving ahead, and It's on IMDb, which is fairly official. IMDb is a fairly official account of future productions. It's in pre-production. He's getting a full trilogy. I think what he does is he's a penny pincher. I think he knows how to spend money because this has a supposed budget of $40 million. You'd always double the budget because the filming budget does not include distribution, doesn't include advertising and all that stuff. So for $80 million, that's kind of impressive for this movie with the cast that it has, the location. There's a lot of CGI because a lot of this location I think is CGI. I think the whole Glass Onion is all CGI and it looks really good. And I think he would have been, there's a couple directors that come to mind like this. He would have been a great director of photography. He would have been, I think, a top class director of cinematography. With that said, there are some really terrible crane shots in this movie that they kept. So that might be because of budgeting. It might have been like, this is our last day where we have the beach where all of us are here. There's a lot of scenes where they're all together, unlike other ensemble films where they can do a lot of the movie where it's 2 at a time, 3 at a time, maybe sometimes 4, and then they'll have 3 scenes where they're all together and that's it. So this movie would have been difficult arranging because a lot of it, they're all together. So there's a lot of dealing with the placement of the characters and keeping these consistent as the camera moves around the room and all that stuff. I don't know. I haven't looked. I wasn't really paying attention to that stuff. That he might not even be doing that well. I just didn't really notice it. But my point is that I think people are hiring him because he can save money while he makes his horrendous movies. But
that makes sense. One question I want you to answer, and I think I remember you saying this correctly, but I want to verify that. So he wrote which Star Wars movie?
The Last Jedi.
The Last Jedi. And The Last Jedi, that's the one where Luke Skywalker
dies.
Dies. Okay.
This is the guy who killed Luke Skywalker.
And he was given a script of sorts that he did not follow. He threw it in the trash. And so it was his decision to kill Luke Skywalker in the fashion that he did. Entirely. Okay, so
it was not J.J. Abrams' idea at all.
I will say that if I knew that before watching this movie, I would have hated its guts.
It's
immediately.
Different, right? It's just
because fuck him. Like I just can't. Yeah. That's unforgivable. Yeah. Like there's only one thing I need to know to hate this guy, and that's that he, of his own accord, decided to kill Luke Skywalker. He is such a presumptuous and arrogant bastard.
It's so arrogant.
Like how could you take a hero like that,
and then
someone that so many people love, like regardless that wasn't a good movie for a lot of reasons, the Last Jedi, but to kill that hero off, to take that upon yourself that you could do that is unforgivable. And that's all I want to say about that.
I totally agree. To be clear, because Justin is a huge Star Wars fan, we really talk about it often. It comes to mind the ones we like, but you have a special. So you have an ability that I don't have, where you'll hate something and then ignore it and forget about it for the rest of your life. Where I will hate something and I'll want to know everything about it. So like the Last Jedi, like I've seen it way more than I needed to. But so like. He not only wrote that, I'll just I'm trying to find over here like if I can I was trying to find some of those tweets of his, because what happened was the Last Jedi came out and a lot of people were really upset. It's not that Luke Skywalker died. It's not that he died. It's that he died in a really unclever, terrible, unheroic way. But Rian Johnson's response to the backlash was, you didn't like it because we had more black people in it, and that's why you're racist. And it's all no, I'm serious. You can look it up. They're still up there. He tweeted that 5-6 years ago. They're still there. You can go see it. It's still there because that's who he is. He never regretted those tweets because that's who he is. If you don't like his movie, it's because there's black people in it and you're racist. And so that's why I mentioned I'm not supposed to notice the empowered black woman smashing all the white guys stuff. The reason I mentioned that isn't it's such a trap. It is kind of a trap, but fuck it. Like the trap is like, oh, a lot of people who watch my movies are racist, and so I'm gonna put stuff in it that they won't like, and then when they don't like my movie, I'm gonna call them racist again. And so it's like it's so I'm pointing it out because these things are supposed to bother us, but in a it's just oof.
Yeah, I have to go back because I said that was all I wanted to say, but I realize I need to expound a little bit more upon why I hate how Luke Skywalker was killed. And the reason is it's not because of how his death happened necessarily. Mm-hmm. It's how the death of a hero happened in the whole movie. They painted Luke Skywalker to be such a pathetic loser who it just why do you have to take a hero who is already like built himself up in people's minds? I used to pretend to be Luke Skywalker as a kid or Obi-Wan Kenobi, and my friends would all be characters and we would play, and that was our imagination time. We were these heroes who were going to fight the dark side and be the champions of goodness and light. That was it. Like, he was such a hero to me, and then to take his character and to portray him as such a feeble, weak, not just like physically, but he's someone who failed all of the Jedis he was training. He's someone who thought about killing one of his own pupils in their sleep. Spineless stuff. Like, this is not the Luke Skywalker of the original trilogy. The Luke Skywalker of the original trilogy is someone who had the entire multiverse or multi-galaxy rejoicing for the death of the Emperor. That's Luke Skywalker. And his father, bringing his father back from the dark side. Like, that's Luke Skywalker. Yeah. He's such a hero. That's what the death of Luke Skywalker is so frustrating about. You're right. It's that they completely assassinated his character.
It's true. No, that's so true. It's not that he died. It's not that he was killed. Why didn't he die the same way Obi-Wan did? Why wasn't he there in person? And he could have done the ghost thing, where the lightsaber, as it cuts through, he just ghosts and his robe falls. It could have been an homage to Obi-Wan's death. And it would have been, but you're right, though. The point you're saying, it's the context of the entire film, right?
Yes.
Starting with the throwing away the lightsaber and then finding out what had happened with his school. And so also, like, I get him. So people compare his story. They're like, well, it's supposed to be like Obi-Wan's story because Obi-Wan was hiding on Tatooine. It's like, no, Obi-Wan for 30 years was
protecting Luke.
He was protecting Luke. Yeah. He was watching over Luke for 30 years, diligently. And Luke Skywalker ran away to some place that purposely that nobody would be able to find, and the only map to it, something happened to it,
and he wanted the Jedi to die out. Yeah, he says that in this movie. That. Like, he straight up is like, the Jedi's done. Like, we're done, Rey. This isn't happening anymore. It's a failed thing.
Yep. So I think it's a good point to make about how these people who are resentful, bitter, ideological, little, like, they were like nerds. This is like Revenge of the Nerds kind of shit. And they can't just like bring up and invent a new hero in the shadow of an existing hero. Like, they have to destroy the existing hero over and over again. They just do it over and over again. So they can't have, how cool would it have been for Rey to show up? And this is what JJ planned, was Rey is here. opening of the second movie. Now we've got Luke back. Cool. All right, we've got Luke. We were wondering why we didn't get a scene with Luke and Leia and Han together, but hey, we'll never get that. But hey, at least he's here now. So now he'll train Rey, and they're gonna fight the Empire 2.0 together. Like, that sounds kind of cool, right? But no, you can't have that, because Rey has to be the only hero in the show, and I don't know. So, anyways, This is the same guy, and you're right. I think if we had rewatched The Last Jedi and then we watched Glass Onion, we would feel very different. You would have been feeling very different.
Again, if you had told me that before I watched it, I know I would have hated it from the beginning, because I loathe the person who killed my childhood hero and assassinated his character.
It was more of a tactical assassination. Yeah,
for sure.
I would have. I mentioned no. Oh, sorry. Were you gonna say him?
No, I don't want to get into it, but there were so many character assassinations in that trilogy. Of Star Wars.
Yeah, Han.
Yeah. And that wasn't this person, right? That was
right. That's the thing. Like
Abrams.
JJ, he's in a very similar sphere. So I think he is very. I think he's a great filmmaker. Bad Robot, his film production company, is a poison in Hollywood. It's a poisoned well where everyone seems to leave there a trained leftist ideologue, and it's just it's routine that people who go into who spread in outside of the Bad Robot company, that they bring an agenda with them. So J.J. Abrams, he's got his own stuff too, but
yeah, I mean, I know I was just saying this to you and my wife recently, but just bringing up the racial and sex conversation and agenda that is frequently upsetting about recent movies and TV shows. It's not, for me, the same kind of thing as it used to be. When I was watching movies in the 90s and early 2000s, there were several heroes of stories who were black, who were female, and that wasn't why I liked a movie. It wasn't what the movie hinged on. They were just awesome. Like Will Smith is a good example. He was one of my favorite childhood heroes.
I loved him growing up, for sure.
He was awesome. Super cool. Just a badass. And not because he was black. And it wasn't nothing about the plot hinged on that. It wasn't thrown in my face all the time in this kind of untactful way that it is now. Similarly, Uma Thurman in Kill Bill, that's one of my favorite movies. And she's a heroine, and it is awesome. It's not, it doesn't have to step on every man in the character is a bad person because this woman is the heroine. It's just a story that is not, it's intelligent. It's genius, I would say. It's excellent storytelling.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
And nowadays, it feels like when they try to paint a heroine character, or they try to have, black recognition in movies instead of just characters who are black. Morgan Freeman, Denzel Washington. There's so many movies I could list that I love with them as the main characters and the actors. And it doesn't, I never walked away from it like that was a black man. I never did, ever.
Right.
That wasn't important at all. Not to say that I don't see race or anything, but that's not important. That's not what makes a movie good. The gender of the protagonist doesn't need to stand above the opposite gender to make the female character look better. I hate that with Rey and Luke Skywalker. I hate that with what's her face, Galadriel, and virtually every other man in the new Lord of the Rings thing. It's horrible. I don't know why they're doing that. It just seems like such poor writing.
It's supposed to be divisive, I think.
Yeah, for sure. It definitely is.
Yeah.
And it's in your face so hard that it's supposed to be divisive.
I know I could name several black, critics and or celebrities, or there's a number of black people in this business in one way or another who resent this as well. And also will say, you know what? I grew up reading Captain America, and it never once bothered me that he was white, and I never needed a black Captain America. I've heard that a ton of times, and they're resentful of the whole idea. And it's such a projection.
Yeah.
It's so...
Sure.
It's such a tell. It's really like, wow, you're really that's it. It's like, oh, this is how I think, and so it must be how everyone thinks. And it's like, no, that's just you. But by it's a trap. I mean, like, we're just not supposed to talk about it, because by us being upset, that's us. Like, we're the ones projecting, and we're the ones who are like being whatever about it. But like the to put a succinct point on it, it's offensive and demeaning to tell people who don't like your movie that they're racist because they don't like your movie. And it's insulting. And but as you were saying that, she's gotten some awards this year. This isn't even the one I was trying to find, but Janelle Monáe, who was Helen / like, come on. Really, we've seen amazing performances by a lot of people this year. And, you know, like, there was nothing special. I'm sorry. There's nothing special about your role in Glass Onion. It just wasn't that, like, special. I don't know. Like, you played, one of your characters had a Southern accent, and one of them didn't. It's like, so, okay, and then this is the reason I brought it up and I thought it would be worth mentioning is because I think it's insulting as well to give people awards for not exceptional performances because they're black or queer. Like, isn't that insulting? The correct response, Janelle, is to say, you know what? Fuck your award. I'm not accepting an award because I'm queer. Like, isn't that insulting to you?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Sure.
I don't understand. Like,
For sure.
So to anyone out there, she says, to anyone out there like me watching right now, this is so funny. I didn't know this is what it said, but there was a funny video Justin and I saw the other day. I just want you to know that I see you, but I challenge you to see you.
Oh my God, dude. It's so bad.
It's
on
programming.
On this same
programming.
vein, I just heard that, what's his name? Little comedian guy, Kevin Hart. Kevin Hart won an Oscar for the new Jumanji movie.
Huh.
And
really?
Yes. And again,
I didn't know that.
We talked about, I just heard someone talking about this, so that's the only reason I know is because he was in an interview about it. And it was Keenan. Remember Keenan from Keenan and Kel?
Yeah.
Keenan was interviewing him, and he was like, wow, like, I was surprised you got an Oscar for Jumanji. And Kevin Hart's laughing, and he's like, what, you don't think Jumanji was worth an Oscar nomination?
Oh, my God.
But they're both joking about it because it is so silly. It's
wow.
Like, this
I didn't
movie
know
is
that.
not that great. We already did our best of the year. The Northman easily makes that list. It's so good.
Yeah.
And no Oscar nominations?
Anya Taylor-Joy in The Northman had a lot more of a complicated role to play than this lady.
Yeah,
Sorry,
exactly.
I cut you off, but yeah.
And that's all. That's all we're trying to say is the recognition isn't going where it deserves. It's too pointed at minority groups now, and not the actual the best of the best. Which to me, I don't care if the best of the best is any minority group. They could be any kind of minority. Would not bother me if they deserved it. But to give people awards for such mediocre performances based on them being part of minority groups is insulting, like you said.
Yeah, it's insulting. And the other thing, it's insulting because you're supposed to expect exceptional things from all people when you're giving awards. And you don't give awards for a less exceptional performance because the person is queer or black. It's what's that term? I love it. I'm blanking on it now because there's like 4 things I want to say, but at the same time. But it's the bigotry of low expectations. It's the bigotry of low expectations, and it's so perfect when you hear specific people I could name. They're on TV a lot. They work in a big building in DC called the White House. When they say things like, to have more black college students and to have more black students graduating high school, we need to lower our grading standards. That's called the bigotry of low expectations. It's actually racist.
It's very racist. It's not even just like a little racist. It's extremely racist.
It's so absurd, and it's insulting to black parents who do a good job of raising their kids and get their kids to school on time and like have them do their homework and stuff. And it's insulting to all people really involved in any way.
For sure.
But this is another thing I'm not supposed to do, is be like, this is the equivalent of like, well, I have a friend, he's a close friend and he's black and gay. I'm not supposed to do that either. But Moonlight is one of my favorite movies of all time, and it's about an urban gay kid coming of age, and it's I mean, we won't get into it now. I mean, it would be worth talking about more. I love this movie so much. It makes me cry. This movie makes me cry, and I don't need basically, I don't really care what people think of me in this way if you don't know me. And if you do know me, talk to me about it. And if you don't talk to me about it, then I don't care. But like, it's just, this is the world that this guy, Ryan Johnson, is in. So I did bring up the tweet, and the tweet about telling Star Wars fans who didn't like his movie that they're racist, but we're over it. We made our point. I do believe. But, yeah, I mean, we don't even have to. It's there's a bunch of like plot holes stuff, and I have a couple of lies. We mentioned a couple of them already, and we mentioned how he developed sympathy for Duke and then assassinated that sympathy because he just couldn't have him be anything but an asshole. Yeah, I mean, we went through a lot, but yeah, he's making a third one. There'll be a third one. It'll be another $40 whodunit, which is, again, that's kind of impressive. But the napkin, right? The whole empire hinged on this napkin, apparently. But
and only the original could have had that stamp on it. You're like, couldn't they just stamp the new one?
Yeah, couldn't the guy who like has a car put on his roof every time he visits the island, couldn't he have like a napkin printed with glass?
Not just any car, but like the most rare car in the world. Yeah, I know. There's so many plot holes. It's ridiculous. This scene though that you're showing right now was by far the worst though. Like, how can they all go through that explosion and then just come out looking like exactly like a Wile E. Coyote? Like they got ash on
her side. On her side. This is attempted murder.
Yeah,
this is attempted murder. And they literally come out of it like, you know what? You're not that bad. You're pretty cool.
Even though you just tried to kill virtually all of us. And we should all be dead, like realistically.
Yeah, I mean, so let's okay, real quick. Oh, there's the Mona Lisa burning. Like I'm not supposed to feel any emotion other than you go girl. That's how you're supposed to feel watching that. You go girl. Is this before or after the explosion? I think this is right after the explosion, because there's a bunch of fire before the explosion. Oh, and then they're like he's sitting out here like, yeah, that's my girl. Yeah, you show him. It's just but I want to get the shot of the explosion though, because it'll put a dude.
Yeah.
They are all inside of that, or they're like right under it, right?
Right.
They're right under it.
And the like strongest source of that impact that blew up that glass onion should have been where the flame was started, which was the room that they were in. Like it just nothing about it makes sense.
So and then it just starts going through the whole property, and yeah, I don't know.
It looks like pyrotechnics at like a concert too. How it just like shoots out little flames here and there. Like it's like, oh, AC/DC's about to come out.
Ooh, that would be cool.
Yeah. Oh God.
Well, I'm happy that I wanted to get our opinion on Glass Onion on the books. It it just Honestly, like, I just skimmed through my notes again real quick. There's so much more to talk about, but I'm really over it. I'm kind of over it.
Yeah, I feel you. And like you said, there is the aspect of like this is a pretty cool movie for the budget in a certain
For
sense.
sure. Yeah, yeah.
And I'm sure also that a lot of people could watch this and enjoy it and not necessarily pick apart a lot of the things that are in this, especially a much more casual viewing of it.
Right.
Than how we're looking at it.
Well,
but I think it goes without saying that there are too many plot holes in this movie.
Well, oh yeah, for sure. It's way too many to not go without Camp Divvy talking about it. But like,
Yeah.
it was pretty much the day after, as I was thinking about it, and I was starting to be like, oh, this is a little bit. There's some things going on. When I mentioned it to you, I wanted you to watch it. I knew you would watch it with Leah, but I wanted you to enjoy it. So
Yeah.
I didn't like trash it, right?
When I went into it, again, I didn't know who made the movie. I didn't know how it ended or really anything about it. You did good at not any spoilers on it.
Or even like, oh, you should watch Glass Onion. It sucked.
Yeah, and as I watched it, it was enjoyable, like I said. But when I found out that it was Miles all along, it was very unsatisfying.
Yeah,
the first time that I watched it, it was dissatisfying.
Like the box opening in the beginning.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
It was just like a lot of buildup, and it felt like for nothing.
Yeah.
Like there was no real mystery. It was exactly who you'd expect from the very beginning.
Mm-hmm.
And that was very underwhelming. It was like the opposite of The Sixth Sense. It was,
Oh, dude, that's a great example of a movie. It gives you all the information you need,
Yes.
and then when the disclosure comes, you're like, oh, that
it makes so much sense. It makes so much sense, but you never would have seen it coming if no one gave that away for you.
That feeling is what you're going for in a movie like this.
Yes.
It's a very specific formula.
Absolutely.
Like, it's a thing.
But you don't have to do it by lying to the audience. The Sixth Sense doesn't lie to the audience. It makes a lot of sense when you hear it. And like you said, it's like, oh, yeah, okay, shit.
So
like,
much so that when you watch it again, you're like, how did I not see this the first time?
Exactly.
And that's brilliant. That's
brilliant for
that's
sure.
a brilliant movie for
Is that J.J. Abrams? Right?
That's no, that's that
M.
guy,
Night Shyamalan.
M. Night Shyamalan.
Shamalama Ding Dong. Yeah, that might be his best movie. I think it is.
Yeah, it might be.
First and best.
He made a couple really good ones, but that I think that's his best movie.
Yeah.
I mean, it's it's The Sixth Sense is almost like an adjective now. It's like it's so ingrained. I think most people at least know the twist, right? Even if they haven't seen the movie.
It's a legendary twist.
It is. It really is. Yeah.
And
it's so
Bruce
good.
Willis and that kid are so great in
And again,
it too.
it's so obvious the whole time.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a great example of what you're going for when you're writing a movie like this. It's not a whodunit, but same build up and same kind of effect that you want to have on the audience at the end. So
this definitely doesn't have that caliber of movie.
No. Well, you remember when Blanc was so Miles starts to unveil or no, he gives him the rules and he's like, all right, you have the next couple days and we're going to do this and you're solving my murder and here are the rules. And then Blanc solves it right away.
Immediately. That doesn't make sense.
Why did he do that?
I thought that was weird too. He says to Miles in one of the next scenes that he did that deliberately because he thought everyone was trying to kill Miles.
That's what he says.
And he wanted to save him from the opportunities that mystery was going to present for all the would-be killers.
That's what he said.
But we know that he is actually there to solve a real murder. So it just really doesn't make any sense. I don't know why. I can't think of a good reason.
You're right though. That's what the movie says.
Yeah. I mean, you'd think theoretically, if he was there to solve the real murder,
he would just be
he would want the fake murder mystery to be happening, so that him and Helen could do the sleuthing that they needed to do. They could go around and search for the clues under the premise that they're searching for the fake clues.
You would think.
but
Wouldn't that be so much more convenient than what they end up doing?
yes. Yeah. They were just trying to show you how smart Blanc was without his character actually acting very smart.
Right. But it told us he was smart, though, so he must be smart.
I mean, he had such a witty accent, so...
Yeah, it's unfortunate. Like, I like the character. The character, I think Daniel Craig did a fun job with.
Yeah,
and
I love
I'm
Daniel
sure.
Craig.
I'm sure they had fun too. It must have been fun to make.
Yeah,
it was
for
probably
sure.
fun to
I'm
make,
sure
yeah.
just that group hanging out had a chemistry. You can feel it in
Yeah.
the movie. Like they have a certain chemistry. That group.
Yeah,
They have a respect for each other as professional actors, and you know, like again, how could you not make a watchable movie with this kind of ensemble? Like it's such a good cast.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know.
We'll see. We'll be here for the next one. All right.
You know, would it be fun to
Knives Out
review
3.
some Tarantino movies, because he's really good at getting some really awesome casts together.
Yes.
And his movies are genius though. He's my favorite director.
He's definitely up there, top 3 or 4 for me probably, but I love to listen to him too. I know he kind of rubs people the wrong way, but I find it endearing, and I love hearing his insights on filmmaking. And you know, we could do a Tarantino episode where we could talk about him. We could watch some clips of him talking about his movies, and we could. I mean, I'm not against that at all. Not at all. He mentioned. So right around, it was Thanksgiving week, he came out saying he had written a mini-series. So I think the next project he's doing is that. And then his 10th and final film. My point being, he is working on some things, but I don't think they're coming out anytime soon.
Okay.
But
I still haven't seen Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Oh,
but
shit.
I believe I've seen all of his other movies.
Okay. Yeah.
So I still want to watch that, but yeah, I mean, his first movie is Reservoir Dogs, unless I'm mistaken.
Nope, that's it.
And
it's number 1.
he just starts off with one of the greatest movies. Like, it's just so good. And I mean, every time I try to think of his movies, there's only a couple that I think are on a lower scale, but I think they're all just so great. It's just
I would
creative.
rewatch
The
any
music,
of them.
the soundtracks.
I know.
Oh my God.
I know. Him and Scorsese are the best with it. I don't know who's better. But it might be Tarantino. He's popularized so many songs. There's so many songs that we know and that in culture are just so ingrained that are from his movies.
The energy, the funk, oh man, I don't know. I could just go on and on. I guess we should do something about Tarantino.
Yeah,
at some
I'm not
point.
against that at all, for sure.
Maybe we'll slowly go through his movies or something.
Yeah, I'm not against that at all. I would rewatch any one of his movies anytime. So, yeah.
Same.
You can see my screen, right?
Yeah.
That's Tarantino's. I mean, this is he's linked to Kill Bill Volume 3.
What? Is that going to happen?
This is his next upcoming project. It says you go to Tarantino, go to upcoming, Kill Bill Volume 3. In a comic, there's a Django Zorro comic, but Kill Bill Volume 3 in development.
Something about the first one is so much better for me than the second one.
I think so too. But yeah.
I think I like both of them, and I like the story arc, especially with Bill and how it ends. I really did like that. But something about the first one is like just such a fun revenge movie, even though it's brutal. It has some really horrible things in it, which, you know, Tarantino tends to do. But it just takes you on such an adventure that's such a like wild ride that I don't know. I love the soundtrack too, and the anime in the middle. Like, what movie that's good has like a big scene in it that's anime?
I remember the first time that was happening, and it was like unreal.
Yeah,
unreal. The first time watching Kill Bill Volume 1 was so memorable. I was probably like 13 or 14.
and it's perfect. Like, how could you show that scene without being an anime and have it be as meaningful? It's
such a cool idea.
Oof, man. Yeah, I love it.
All right, to close, we'll do because it's fun, Jan. This is one of the greatest interviews of all time. Oh, I'll close it so we can get.
I was gonna say, don't play too much of it; they'll copyright us.
They're not about cute girls.
I wonder if it's an old news segment.
And their t-shirts.
I don't think you can hear it on stream even. Wait.
Stop below their
I hear it.
before their belly button, asking permission to kick ass. These girls just kick ass. They're warriors. They live by a code of honor, and they die by that code of honor too.
And innocent people die along the way. It's about that kind of thing. Now, tell me this.
Innocent people die along the way because unfortunately, that's the story of revenge. Revenge is messy. It never works out the way you want it.
Why the need for so much gruesome, graphic violence? Why not let us imagine?
Because it's so much fun, Jan. Get it?
Yes. That's awesome.
It's great. She wasn't with the station much longer. That's the legend.
Oh man.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know much about Quentin Tarantino, but based on his movies, I would imagine two things. One, I think I take two things about him, and one is that I do think he is one of the most genius storytellers of all time. I really believe that the way he sequences timelines, the way that he cuts scenes, the way he just pulls characters into your mind, like in this really crazy way. I think he's a true storytelling genius.
An auteur.
But the other thing I would say, without knowing too much about him, besides watching his movies, is that he has a very dark side.
Yeah.
Because every movie he has made has some really twisted stuff in it. But I would say that because of that, he paints the picture of the hero so well. You know, just one of my favorite scenes of all time of like any movie is in Pulp Fiction when Bruce Willis selects the katana. He knows he's going back into this sex dungeon to kill people who are some of the biggest demons you've ever imagined before seeing this scene.
He just escaped them.
He just escaped them. He could leave.
Yeah.
There's guns. There's other weapons. And his eyes fall on the katana. The music, the way you can just picture him like, this is how I want to kill these demons is with this katana. I love that so much. Like, oh, it's just, he's a genius.
So classic.
He's a twisted genius. I mean, that's how I view him.
He's definitely twisted for sure. Yeah. The way he puts it though is like, I mean, I'm not saying he's probably not a very, he definitely has some dark sides for sure. But the way he puts it is it's building up the catharsis of the violence. So like you have, Django is a perfect example where you have in Django, there are two types of violence. You have the very cinematic, not cartoonish, cinematic's a good word for it, but you have the dramatized heroic violence of the revenge. But the violence, all of the violence inflicted on the slaves it's really brutal, and it's not, you know what I mean by cinematic?
Yeah,
like it's not,
right.
not like, it's just really visceral and it feels very realistic.
It's supposed to be realistic versus the more like dramatized violence of the hero. I totally
the blood
see
spray and the
Django's a good
yelling
example for sure.
Yeah.
And a lot of his movies have captured that.
I think so. Another great example of that would be Inglourious Bastards for sure. But Kill Bill actually. Kill Bill
for sure.
The scene where she's still comatose, like that's really, it's hard to watch. I don't like that scene, but it's very different the way he films that from when or even when she's in the house with the assassin ninja lady she used to work with, and they're having the cat fight. Like that's very different from the more like the glorious violence at the end when she's really like getting her
for sure.
revenge
And that scene that you mentioned where she's in the coma, agreed. Like it's really an intense scene, and there's two things in that scene that normally I hate in movies. I'm extremely sensitive to like I'm the guy who's like cringing in my seat when like really graphic stuff happens. Like the smashing of the guy's head in the door. And I'm also the kind of person that really doesn't like rape type stuff in movies. It just it gets to me, it gets under my skin. I'm sensitive. But I love that scene because the balance of those two is so significant. Like you in so little time, you hate this guy. Again, he's a demon. Like the doctor who is selling her body while she's in a coma. He's a demon. Like you hate him so much, so fast. Very little buildup needed. In seconds. You hate this guy so much. And then she smashes his head so many times in the door that at the end of it, they just show his leg twitching because like his, he's so dead. Like he's like a chicken with its head cut off. Like his body's just twitching. And I normally really don't like either of those things, but together it gives me such a sense of satisfaction that she gets him so bad. It's exactly what you said. It's that build up for the cathartic feeling.
Which in his, he sees that as being good for people. He thinks it's good for people to have that cathartic feeling, and that you're getting out real life stress and real life anger in that process. So that's how he sees it. So I mean, there could be something to that.
So yeah, again,
he's to put it in another way, he sees Kill Bill entirely as empowering women. The way he looks at it is that it's for there's a book club of fan fiction writers. There's a book club literature world of Kill Bill fans, rape victims who write Kill Bill fantasy. Fan fiction.
Wow. I mean, I believe it. Again, I would rate Kill Bill as my favorite, unless I'm missing one, and I could be, but it's my favorite movie that has a heroine protagonist. I really love it. It's just, it hits all the marks for me. It's so stylish, but also brutal.
Uma Thurman's so perfect for it.
Uma Thurman's perfect. Everyone in it is perfect.
How brilliant was he to have that? Remember when she shows up in Japan, she's going to get her sword, and you have that really cute scene where she goes to the sword master maker
Hattori Hanzo,
and you have this super cute scene between them, and you just saw her murder that. I think that's right after she killed the ninja woman in her home, right, with the cereal box thing and all that. Was that
actually
after?
They did it out of order, so you did just see that, but she
right it's not chronological.
The first thing that she does actually is go and gets this sword before she kills any of the people on her list.
Right. But you're seeing this scene right after this really brutal fight. And so you just get two really different sides of her. And Uma Thurman plays it so well. So good.
Yeah, I mean, yes, it's so good. From beginning to end, how he writes on the window.
Bill.
Everything. The music of when she goes in and sees all of his swords and she picks them up, and the reverence for the steel and for the weapon and the significance of his weapons in particular, and just the legend is built so quickly.
Yeah, you're right. Oh, she doesn't say to him, "Wow, I can't touch this. You're one of the best sword makers ever." Like it's just like the look on her face and the way you're right, the way she picks it up and the reverence. It's
so good. I love it, and it's such an homage to kung fu genre in general, while also carrying that new stylized like form. Oh god, I could go on and on. I really love that movie and Tarantino movies in general. Like so many times that I've rewatched it because they're all so rewatchable. But when I rewatch like Pulp Fiction, we're looking at that right now. When I rewatch this, I just remember how much of a masterpiece it is. The dialogues between Dancing Grease guy, come on, John Travolta.
Yeah.
John
Yep,
Travolta and
yeah, Samuel L. Jackson.
Samuel L. Jackson.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
It's
The
like
acting.
go.
Oh my god! It just so many levels.
I think the Travolta Jackson dialogue is go-to classic example of great dialogue. Like people, I think it's referenced a lot. The quarter pounder with cheese is referenced a lot. I hear it referenced a lot, and also a lot of mimics. Like, there's a lot of people trying to copy that just smooth talking gangster thing.
I mean, it's genius in so many levels, but like, how genius is it to put you have such a gritty movie, and you put John Travolta in it with a dancing scene?
Yep.
Like,
Yep. Mm-hmm.
that's genius. It's so good.
Yeah, I think you would enjoy hearing Tarantino's story about how all that happened too, because it's some of it is like just lightning in a bottle kind of stuff, where it's like there's some happenstance, there's some planning for sure, there's some amazing ideas, brilliant ideas, the ideas with equally brilliant execution. Like the execution of that dance scene is perfect. It's perfect. I wouldn't change anything about it. Oh, I love it. So good. Is this a Hattori Hanzo sword here? Is this a little that would be cool, right?
It doesn't have the mark.
Yeah.
Well, actually, the mark is on the blade, so let's see when he unsheaths it, because he does have a stamp that he puts on his folded steel katanas.
I don't think we're gonna see it, unfortunately.
And they're all hand forged as well. That would be crazy.
That would be cool. There are some fan theories about Tarantino movies all being in the same universe. With Inglourious Bastards connecting to some other characters and stuff like that. I think it's just for fun. I don't think he's ever said anything along those lines. But
what is that Western one that he made?
Django?
Not that one. I want to say The Hateful Eight, but was it called that?
Oh yeah, Hateful Eight. Yeah.
That was also super good.
It's really good.
Yeah,
really good. Could have been a stage play. I think. Did they end up doing that? They were gonna make it into a stage play, but yeah.
Not sure.
Oh, he's so good. He's so good. Well,
we better wrap it up, though. I could keep going about Tarantino
for
movies
sure.
all day.
That helped cleanse the palate a little bit, right?
For sure. Talk about some masterpieces after some pretty poorly executed movie.
Yep. All right. Well, there it is. We've got our feelings about Glass Onion and some of our feelings about the old Rian Johnson out there now. And I'm never taking it down. Like Rian Johnson's tweets about us racist Star Wars fans, I'm never taking it down.
Yep.
But that's it for us. I'll see you guys next time.
And until next time, use your head.